Hello, ghouls and gals, and of course, Time Lords. Welcome back to Cafe Crashdown, your haunted hideaway for all things horror, strange, and of course, sci-fi. I'm Kayla, your tour guide through timey-wimey mayhem, and today we're diving deep into episode 2 of Doctor Who Season 2, episode LUX. Now listen, if you're just joining us and new to the world of Doctor Who, or if you're a longtime Whovian still trying to decide how you feel about this new, season, reboot, hey, welcome here. We're in that sweet spot of the season where the show starts planting narrative seeds while trying to wow us with these standalone adventures, right? Last week in Robot Revolution, we met Belinda, Chandler, I think I said Chandler in the last video, an independent, no-nonsense nurse who just got yanked into space and declared queen of a robot planet. That episode set a chaotic but promising tone, and now here we are in episode 2 with Belinda's first real journey in the TARDIS, which is always something to see with these new companions. This time we land in 1952 Miami, but don't get too comfortable because things get weird very fast. We're talking cartoon logic, incel-coded AI, trauma as transformation, and the return of the Pantheon of Discord, aka Chaos Gods from the outside universe. Another episode that has a lot. So whether you're into surreal meta hijinks or prefer your sci-fi with a bit more structure, LUX is worth unpacking. And I'm doing just that in this review, so we're gonna break it down piece by animated piece. All right, so just a very quick synopsis. The episode starts in 1952 Miami, a setting that I thought really had big potential, especially considering the socio-political dynamics of that time. I don't even know if I said that word right, but you get what I'm saying. But instead of leaning into the historical commentary, the episode spins wildly into the surreal type of territory. Our monster of the week is Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding, an animated trickster pulling his victims into cartoon worlds. But surprise, he's actually LUX, a harbinger of the Pantheon of Discord. This is a major mythology drop linking back to the entities that exist outside the universe, and possibly setting up the season's big bads. The tone? Completely unhinged. The episode is very self-aware, high camp, and freaking meta as hell. Some moments land, others, well, not so much. So Belinda Chandler, I'm calling her that. I know it's Belinda Chandra, but I'm just calling her Belinda Chandler, gets her first true taste of time and space travel. And she's not exactly enchanted. Her grounded energy continues to shine. She's just practical. She's skeptical and completely unimpressed by the doctor's posturing, which I think is really funny. I enjoy it a lot. She asks the hard questions. She speaks her mind and doesn't get swept up in this whole magic of the TARDIS, okay? Her role grounds the story and us, especially when things get completely absurd, right? And what really stands out is how Belinda never loses her sense of control. Even when she's tossed into a cartoon dimension, she keeps her head and adapts quickly, and she approaches the situation with, very calm and clinical focus. Clearly someone who's used to handling chaos in the hospital, right? So, not a space-time vortex kind of scenario, but, she's used to having to keep calm when she's doing her work that she's doing in the hospital. There's a revealing moment where she pushes back on the doctor's tendency to leap into danger, which he does, but we also love that about him, right? And here's the thing. She's not a coward, but she's someone who has learned through real life experience that not all problems require theatrics. We also see subtle emotional moments with her that hint at deeper layers. When the cartoon logic forces these characters to revisit their pain, Belinda doesn't just offer a huge monologue, but what we do get tells us a lot about her, okay? Her past is starting to seem very complex. She's not looking for a savior, and she doesn't want to be manipulated, okay? Really, she just wants to get home, but here we are. All right, so we gotta talk about this whole cartoon chaos. We have Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding. He power warps reality, turning characters into literal cartoons, keeping them encaged in film. The visual gag works a lot of the times, and the aesthetic is super fun. I really liked this villain. Lux, even in cartoon form, was just really incredibly fun. He's theatrical without being overbearingly campy, but calculated. And his chaotic energy felt totally at home in the world of Doctor Who. There's something charmingly menacing about him, and he's putting on a performance just to see how long it'll take before the universe cracks. His presence brings this real spark to the episode, and I honestly wouldn't mind seeing him again. I would really love him to come back. Now, for the mechanics of his cartoon world, there's a plot device where characters can only return to their three-dimensional forms by digging up emotionally painful memories. And look, I get, where they're going with this. It's trying to link transformation and healing, but it kind of feels shoehorned. Like we're mid-tune and suddenly talking about generational trauma to rehydrate our bones. I don't know. It's just a bit much and kind of tonal whiplash. It just didn't work for me personally. Okay, and then there's the meta stuff, all right? Oh boy. This is becoming a reoccurring feature with this new reboot. And maybe some of you are here for all of this whole meta stuff, okay, here's the thing. And I'll admit, when the fans showed up and started rattling off theories like they were on Gallifreyan Twitter, it was cute at first, but that charm wore off really fast. And here's the thing. I don't know, maybe you all didn't feel this way, but this is just how it came across to me. It felt like the inverse fan avatars, they felt less like a love letter to the fandom and more like the show giving us a knowing wink and a little side eye at the same time. I'm all for playful commentary, but it started to feel like this episode was mocking fans for caring too much. And I don't know, maybe that wasn't the intention, but it just pulled me out of the story more than once. I don't know. We'll come back to it. The whole cartoon logic was an interesting experiment, and Lux as a villain totally worked for me. But the forced emotional beats and fourth wall commentary, I don't know. It's not my thing. I appreciate the ambition, but I think this one tried to juggle too many things at once. So let's talk about Lux, right? Like, he isn't just a cartoon villain, he's a harbinger of the pantheon of discord. So that's a major mythology escalation. We've seen glimpses of these godlike figures before, abstract forces outside of time and space who thrive on chaos. Lux presents as a comic relief villain, but there are sinister undertones, right? His presence signals that the Doctor is once again stepping into battles far bigger than he realizes. This is setting up for some epic confrontation down the road, or worst case, it's an overstuffed red herring, kind of like the Ruby storyline. Either way, it adds stakes and cosmic weight to what otherwise could make this feel like a filler episode. All right, so circling back, I really wanted to talk about this with 1952 Miami because this time in this location has some major potential. We have post-war cultural crossroads deeply layered with racial and political tension. But the setting is basically wallpaper here, right? And just a reason for them to dress up. Beyond a few costume choices and background cars, the episode doesn't use the time period for anything meaningful. It feels like a missed opportunity, especially given how rich this area is. You've got the Cold War paranoia, racial segregation, queer culture thriving underground, and glamour of Art Deco clashing with deep societal unrest. There was so much they could have played with. Just imagine if the cartoon distortion had been used to reflect the way people of the time hid behind polished facades, right? Or if the bright animated surface was contrasted against a darker historical reality. That would have added weight to the satire and given the emotional moments more punch. The story about the dangers of illusion and nostalgia would have landed harder if it had more fully engaged with this historical moment of time. Okay, we gotta talk about visuals. Visually, of course, Lux is bold, the animation is playful, and the color palette, it freaking pops. And there's a fun nod to Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera classics, and the animated versions of the Doctor and Belinda are surprisingly expressive. There's a real confidence in how the episode embraces cartoon absurdity. It's not afraid to lean into the big swings, and that makes for a few very great visual gags and stylistic flourishes. If you're not in the mood for meta, or if you're craving a more grounded episode, this one might wear thin fast. We're now 2 episodes in and patterns are emerging. So what's the deal with May 24th, 2025? Why was the Doctor already looking for Belinda? Who is really Mrs. Flood? And how does the Pantheon tie into all of this? Lux doesn't answer any of that, okay? But it does stoke the fires. And that's both exciting and a little frustrating, but hey, they're set up, not much and not much payoff yet, but we're leading into something, right? So for my final thoughts, this episode reinforces a growing tension between the Doctor and Belinda. The Doctor is full of performative confidence and chaos energy. Belinda is a realist, okay? She pushes back, questions logic, and doesn't get swept up in that lovely timey-wimey charm, okay? That tension is essential. It keeps both the characters grounded. So, was Lux good? Honestly, I did enjoy this episode, all right? You may have thought otherwise with, some of my comments, but I did enjoy this episode. Lux was a standout villain for me. He was clever, he was chaotic and fun in a way that really worked with the tone of the story. And there's a lot here that shows Doctor Who still isn't afraid to take risks, which I absolutely love. But the biggest thing that didn't land for me was the meta stuff. And that I think that's probably just a personal preference, but I know some people love that sort of thing. And if you do, that's great. But for me, I don't know. I felt like it was off. There was something about the tone that it just rubbed me the wrong way, especially as a longtime fan. I understand that we're in a new era, okay? We have a new Doctor and evolution is part of what makes Doctor Who timeless, but you also can't ignore legacy either. You can't alienate the fan base that's been there through all the regenerations, through all of the camp, all of the classics, and the chaos. We all have our own reasons for falling in love with the show, and when most of that gets stripped away in the name of, moving forward and evolution, it doesn't feel like an evolution. It feels like a replacement. And that's a very tough pill to swallow. I've kind of made peace with the idea that I'm basically watching a completely new version of Doctor Who now. It's almost like a multiverse version, right? And just by thinking that, it helps me enjoy it more for what it is rather than what it used to be. And look, I think Ncuti, Gatwa, I can't say his name right. He's doing a great job in his own right. He brings a lot of great energy. He's bringing this vulnerability, which is new, and I appreciate and heart. But I would also be lying if I said he fully feels like he's the Doctor to me, because that's just not true. Still, we're only 2 episodes in for this newer season, and there's plenty of time for this new era to settle into its identity. There have been some great genuine moments in both premieres, and yeah, I'm hopeful for what's to come. And these are just my thoughts, right? I'm super curious to know yours. Are you into the whole meta thing? Did Lux work for you as this villain? And how are you feeling about the direction this season is taking? Definitely let me know in the comments below. But hey guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me during this review of episode 2. I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on this episode. And be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss next week's review. Until then, stay spooky, stay strange, and whatever you do, don't let a cartoon character suck you into a fourth wall. See you next time, guys.